What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of A Father's Authority. I'm your host, Nate Holloway. And guys, I'm just glad that you're watching us again. If you're watching us for the first time, A Father's Authority is a part of Kingdom Relationships, and we exist to change the narrative on fatherhood and to bring fathers back into the lives of their children. And tonight, I got some guys with me that we're just going to chop it up about. We're going to be talking about legacy and leaving a legacy for your children and what that means. So here we go. Fellas, what's going on?
Hello.
All right, guys, everybody. You know, this is the crew. This is part of the crew. We normally have about 8 to 10 of us on here, and we just be chopping it up, chopping each other's bones and all that stuff. But we have a good time. We have some more in it. Join us in a little bit. But tonight, I got my man Jimmy and my man Tony.
Yes, sir.
You know, last time y'all saw Jimmy had a little more hair. But, you know, tonight he's looking like a Russian mobster.
I might be. I'm not going to say I'm not.
Yeah.
You might be. You know what? We're going to whack him. We're going to get him. You know, we just know who to call when we need some help. But guys, man, so glad to have you guys. Happy New Year, man.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Another year. It's been a while since the crew has been together but we're gonna just bring the new year in right. And tonight we are talking about legacy. But before we go, for those of you who may have watched us for the first time, I want you guys to tell me a little bit about yourself. Go ahead, Jimmy. Just tell people a little bit about you, who you are.
Hey, Jimmy Anderson, and happily married now for 23 years, going on 23 years. So it's pretty amazing. Have a 19-year-old daughter who is a junior at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and a 15-year-old son who is a sophomore in high school. And they are my world. Between the three of them, that is the focus. I love when we were pre-talking before the recording started. I love Nate's motto of faith, family, and fun, because between the four of us, that is also our motto as well as a family. We want to put God first always, and then from there things just always form out the way they're supposed to. And yes. Super thankful to be on here to have this opportunity to talk about legacy from a father's perspective today. So Nate, thank you for having us. For those watching, enjoy the show.
Always. Awesome. Tony.
Yes, sir. So, man, it sounds cliche when we get on here and you ask about ourselves and everybody's like, oh, you know, families comes first and friendship. But, you know, knowing these gentlemen and the crew, it's all true. You know, we definitely are family first guys. And,
yes,
you know, we never really sit here and speak about our hobbies and, you know, our golf game or our fishing. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love all that stuff. But, you know, family is definitely who I am. You know, I'm 40 years old. I have one little girl, 9 years old, going on 15 with her mentality. And been married. It would be 15 years married on January 19th. So a couple days actually coming up. We'll make 15 years married. Blessed. Feel like my marriage is getting stronger every day. And by stronger doesn't always mean perfect. You know, by stronger means just overcoming more challenges that marriages bring. We've never parented a 9-year-old, you know, so we've already overcome parenting 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old, but, you know, parenting a 9-year-old, 4th grade, different questions, more mature responses. And just knowing that I have, you know, my partner in crime for 15 years to really go through it together speaks a lot of volumes. And, you know, hearing the crew and respond to what you guys got going on and your age children, I mean, just blessed to have you guys in my circle, you know.
Man, awesome, man. You know, Ava been asking type of questions. She was 4 years old.
I know, man. So you're very aware of those questions at 4. So just imagine at 9 what we're getting, man. You know.
I know. When I first met you guys, man, she had my son he had the biggest crush on Ava. And he was 2 when we met you guys.
Yeah, man. He's a special
Already.
kid.
I say, Ava, you did this to my son already. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nate Holloway. I'm the host of A Father's Authority. I have 1 6-year-old son, 6 going on 26.
Yeah.
Again, mature for his age, asking questions, telling me when I'm right and when I'm wrong. Funny story, last week, I hadn't worked out in a little bit, and I was in my office. He said, "Daddy, are you working out?" I said, "No, Dad's working on this." "But Dad, you haven't worked out in a while." I was like, okay, all right, you ain't got to put me out there like that.
Oh man,
he got me. But I've been married to my beautiful wife, Lakeisha, for it'll be 10 years next year, but it's 9 this year. Going on a 10-year mark, and marriage is great. Like I said, we all, the crew, we all believe in God, family, and then everything else.
Yep.
That's my motto: God first, family second, and then everything else. Because once you put that in line, everything is going to fall in line. So, but that's what we come here to do. When we all get together, guys, you're going to just have fun with us. But tonight we are talking about legacy. We're talking about creating a legacy and leaving a legacy for your children. I wanted to do this, guys, because I've been thinking about that. Like, what legacy am I going to leave for Caleb? What am I going to leave for him when I leave this earth? How is he going to be? How is he going to think? How is he going to be set up financially, integral, character-wise? How am I leaving? And those are things that we have to think about as fathers. And when I tried to look up the definition of legacy, it said leaving a financial gift to your children, but I couldn't really find a definition that talked about anything other than financial. Leaves a legacy. That's part of it, but I feel like, to me, leaving a legacy to my children is leaving them with a foundation that they will be able to thrive off in life, whether it's financial, whether it's spiritual, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional. It's emotional. I believe it embodies 3 John 2. We say, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as the soul prospers." And I think when we think about fatherhood and leaving a legacy for our children, we're leaving them all of that. We're teaching them how to have character. We're teaching them how to be integral. We're teaching them how to be financially independent. We're leaving them with financial resources to be able to thrive off of as well. And then we're teaching them the spiritual aspect on how to live successfully spiritually. But it entails a lot. So I would love to know what you guys think. What's your definition of leaving a legacy for your children? Tony, I want to start with you.
So, I gave this a lot of thought when you brought up the topic, and my definition, my perspective on legacy from 5 years back to now has changed dramatically. I thought, just like the definition you looked up, Nate, finances, right? Mm-hmm. I grew up in Miami, Florida, glitz, glamour, success, big city. And I was groomed, to no fault of my family and my mentors and the people in my surroundings, because that's all they knew. But I was groomed to go out and chase success, to leave legacy for your family. From an age where I didn't have a family yet. I wasn't married, didn't have children, but, I put so much pressure on myself to go out and make it financially, to be able to leave a legacy, that, I made myself literally sick. I was in real estate for about 17 years, and I made great money, like really, really good money. And I felt depleted. I felt depleted, and I felt that I was like, man, what's next? Then God blessed me with, with a child. I was married for maybe about, 6, 7, 8, 9 years when I got sick with shingles, basically because of stress induced. And I started to reevaluate and said, okay, let's say, God forbid, I were to die at this very moment. What am I going to leave my family? I would have left them a very small legacy, financial legacy at that very moment in my life. Because although I was making good money, I, wasn't old enough to have built, generational wealth or anything of that nature. But I felt like I was depleted in values, in morals and ethics. I was raised very morally correct. My father's a person who always instilled good discipline, good values. So I was raised there, but I don't feel like I was doing a very good job at passing that along to my family. So, that quick little illness, praise God, it was nothing more important, more serious, but that really put a lot into perspective. So it shifted my entire world and my entire mindset, where I totally changed. And career-wise, I relocated to a different state. I mean, I changed my life completely to be able to be present for my family, because I'm focused so much on legacy. Contrary to everybody's belief and societal norms, they'll be like, what do you mean? You just took 3 steps backwards. How are you going to leave that financial legacy? But, I don't want to leave that financial legacy. That will come with time if it's meant to be. But I think that we need to leave a moral legacy, right? We need to leave wisdom in the bank accounts of our families. Yes. We need to live, and when I mean bank accounts, I mean our mental bank accounts, our hearts. So all our great teachers, Jesus, Buddhists, for those who believe in Buddhism, all these great philosophers, they left us what I think is the biggest legacy ever. They left us value in information, in writings, in teachings that we can always go back to and refer and associate with what's going on in our lives at that very moment. So when I think legacy, I think it's more of a experiential teaching that we can leave to our family. And you need to be present enough in your family's lives in order to instill that on the daily. Because you guys know very well, when we teach our kids, when we speak to our wives, when people speak to us, we probably retain 5% of the value of a conversation. So if you're constantly present and constantly teaching and constantly feeding your family, then you have more of an opportunity to really, really leave a legacy. And I see it, right? I see it now in challenges my daughter may face. I see it in challenges my wife may face in my, my immediate family, my parents, where they will repeat unintentionally things that I believe I've passed along and taught through my experience and teachings, and right there, I feel like that is, legacy being witnessed before we even pass along, Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's financial. I would love to leave a financial legacy. I would love generational wealth. I work very hard towards that goal. But I'm not going to lose sleep at night if I don't leave. You teach a man to fish and they'll never go hungry, right? You give them a fish and they'll eat one time, so that saying really relates to what I'm trying to relate here is if we teach them how to be financially independent, wealth, all that good stuff, in addition to morals, values, and all that stuff, we're leaving them a spiritual bank account that will never deplete, and hopefully they could pass it along. And that's generation to generation to generation.
Right. And because I love how you said about the moral and about the wisdom. I was watching a clip with Steve Harvey and TD Jakes. And Steve was like, he's spending 85% of his income on him and his wife. He gonna leave the kids 15%, and Steve and TD Jakes said, yeah, he said, because the best thing we can do is give them wisdom and teach them how to be wise and give them wisdom on life. And with the wisdom will come the money, because if we teach them how to do it, how to get the finances, we can still leave it for them, but they'll go through it like crazy.
Yeah.
But, and then they'll be broke. But if you teach them wisdom, they're going to think, okay, daddy said, do this with my money. Daddy said handle this. I saw Daddy do this. I saw Daddy invest. I saw Daddy take this and do that and do these things. If Daddy taught me this, then they'll do that and they'll compound and they'll take the money and they'll use that, but they'll have the mental capacity to make life work and think, look who joined us.
Hey guys.
The man of wisdom himself.
Well, we put these on if
no pressure. There, oh boy.
Oh, water instantly.
Yeah.
My son's Harry Potter glasses. What's going on, fellas?
Sir, how are you?
We just in the conversation talking about legacy. But before we go to Jimmy, Ted, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people. Tell them who you are.
Ted Bullard, proud father of 6, married 23 years in 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks, and a granddad as of New Year's Eve.
Hey, congratulations, buddy.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So Poppy, Pop.
I am a papa.
Papa.
And guys, is anyone else a granddad here?
No.
Okay, just be prepared. You're going to spend an inordinate amount of time on what you're supposed to be called, and you're going to get all kinds of feedback. Just heads up. That was like the biggest decision of my life over the past year. Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations, Ted.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
When's that wedding anniversary?
It's January 22nd.
I'm the 19th, man. 15
Oh, yeah?
years.
Oh, wow. Close.
Yep.
Well, I may see you out on the town then that same weekend.
There you go.
That's funny.
Awesome. So we are okay, Jimmy.
Hey,
what's leaving a legacy to you, man? What's the legacy to you?
You know, I kind of want to break the narrative on that because I think we believe just through what we've always been taught is that leaving a legacy is something that we leave after we're gone. But I think we need to live a legacy. Be active in what is that legacy and identifying that to our spouse and our children while they're with us, and not, I hope after I'm gone, everything I taught them was good, but we can kind of learn on the job, so to speak. Make errors and realize that, hey, you know what, that's not a legacy that I want to leave. This is actually, I want to change it from that and make it this before I am gone. So it's really learning in what Tony was saying, and that is gaining the wisdom. Mm-hmm. But how do you gain wisdom besides trial and error? I'm not born with, Solomon's wisdom. Maybe I need to go and ask for it like he did and be granted it, right? But yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we have to learn as we're training up our children in the ways they should go. Again, we think legacy is finances, and even biblically, I came with Proverbs 13 and 22. Okay. And it says, good people leave an inheritance or a legacy to their grandchildren. So here we are, we're talking children. Ted jumps on, he's a granddad now, and it says, good people leave an inheritance or a legacy even to their grandchildren, but sinners' wealth passes to the godly. So Tony, we want to definitely apply ourselves to gain that wealth, but I'm glad to know that the world's wealth, because I'm leaving a legacy for my children, is laid up for my children. So I don't have to strive and be depleted on trying to provide with them only financial. I know that God's word says, hey, they're going to be provided for. Amen. So what am I doing beyond that? How am I showing them to love one another, love their neighbor as themselves? That's the kind of legacy I think where we've, as fathers, have failed to generations.
Yeah.
If we've been since the beginning of time training our children to love one another, love your neighbor as yourself, and love the Lord your God first and foremost, we wouldn't be in the state we're in 2022 today. But I just think, by understanding what those fruits of the Spirit are and giving them applicable real world examples to our children as they're being raised, that's how we can leave the greatest legacy. Having them understand what love is and understanding that you're going to fail at love because you may hate at one point. So, but not to stay on that hate, but to switch it quickly to understand the legacy that you want to then leave to their children. So I think, again, it's understanding what those legacies that we want to leave, because other people may be watching this and their ideal of legacy is completely opposite of what we're saying it is. They may say it's about leaving $10 million in a bank account in a trust fund to their children when they turn 18. It may be that they say, you know what, I don't want them to live in poverty, and no one does, but I want to completely give them everything without them having to learn anything. But I can honestly say, those of us that are on our phone on the call today, we are who we are today because we've been through some stuff.
Amen.
And so we don't want to protect our kids, I don't think, from going through stuff, because that's how they're going to learn. But I believe that's a part of the legacy left. And again, people may watch this and completely disagree and say, I don't want my kids to go through anything, which is fine too. But I think then they don't get real world experience of what they want to leave a legacy as they move on.
Yeah, and I can attest to that, because I was like that with Caleb. At first, it's like, and I'm still kind of like that in certain ways, where I didn't want him to have to go through anything. I wanted to make sure everything was set, so he didn't have to go through anything. He didn't have to experience any type of hurt, but I can't keep him from that.
Right.
But I love how you said live a legacy. So I have to live the type of life in front of him. Let him see daddy handle situations. Let him see daddy handle trials. Let dad, then when he goes through something, me being able to talk to him and saying, this is how you do it, son. Because and this is how I do it, this is how you should do it. And I'm living and walking an example. And how you said they leave an inheritance for their children's children. So when he see me live the legacy, then he starts to follow the legacy that I'm living. Then his children are going to start to follow the legacy that he's living, and then their children are going to follow the legacy he's living, and so it's going to trickle down. Yeah. So that's how I love that, how we live a legacy. Ted, so what is your definition? What is your ideal? I don't want to say definition, but we're talking about what it means to us to leave a legacy for our children.
Yeah. What a great topic. And Jimmy, I love how you led with that, because you're right. Legacy is so often it's thought about as what we're leaving afterwards. And I don't think there's enough focus on the today. I wrote down 5 things, Nate, that I really actively focus on with my kids. And it's such a timely discussion, because I just talked to, I think it was my son last week. He's 20. And we just had this discussion, and that was my question to him is, what is the legacy that I'm leaving you? What comes to your mind? And these are the 5 things that I've written down, and that I'm very intentional in terms of my focus. Number 1 is God. Obviously, the relationship you have needs to be very personal. And I don't want to rabbit trail too much here, but growing up in Church of God and Pentecostal denominations, and not in any way stepping on those toes of people that are into those denominations. But for me, I grew up in a very, I would call it legalistic environment, where I felt like I had to be perfect 24/7, or I was a reprobate. I was a sinner. Yeah. And through the course of my life, and reading the scriptures for myself, I've realized that's not at all what Jesus taught. It's not at all what the Bible teaches. We are going to sin. We are going to mess up. What matters is what you do with that. So I've tried to impart in them just the relationship. It's not about going to church, and my kids have been active in church forever. We've had them be involved in things like senior saints. So it's service. They're going and helping seniors and literally serving them food and cleaning up after them. And all that's great. Paying your tithes, that's all great. But if you don't have a one-to-one relationship with Christ, and that's really where I was lacking growing up. It was all about who is shouting the loudest, who's speaking in tongues every Sunday. And if you're not doing those things every time you walk in the door, something's wrong. We might need to pray for Ted. He might be demon possessed. And I'm serious. That was the environment I grew up in. Everything was so over the top spiritual that there wasn't that focus of, but Ted, how is your relationship one-to-one with Jesus Christ? can you say that you have a one-to-one relationship? So anyway, number 2 is marriage. Number 2 is a huge one in this house because that is a real passion of mine, my wife's. I just gave my daughter, she's 22, just had my grandson. I just gave her the top 10, here's our top 10 list for having a great marriage the other day, because I feel like in terms of legacy, what better legacy, aside from the relationship with Christ, can you leave your kids in having a great marriage? Right? We all know people that are loaded and yet they have a miserable marriage. They themselves are miserable. So marriage is another one that we spend a lot of time very intentionally trying to impart into our kids and involving them and having open discussions about what makes a great marriage. What is your future going to look like? Number 3 is people skills. That's one that I'm very intentional. I have been active with my kids and getting them involved in my businesses over the years. My youngest son is 13 and he is starting a shoe cleaning business as we speak called Shoetopia. So, and I've done that intentionally for all of my kids, starting when they were around 13 or 14, as I taught them how to start a business, how to run it. And the reason is because obviously it touches on everything really that I'm going to talk about. And I think we're already talking about, which is people skills, it's finances, it's organization, it's communication, it's all those things. And by the way, you're going to fail, right? That's one thing I've always emphasized is one of my favorite books is by John Maxwell called Failing Forward. If you guys haven't read that, read it. Whether you're an entrepreneur, wannabe entrepreneur, or anything else, it's a phenomenal book because it goes into such depth and specific examples of the leaders that you guys know that you may not know their failures, right? All the times they failed, all you see today is they're a billionaire. They've made it big time, but you didn't see all the adversity they went through. So failure is a part of that lesson I want them to learn, and it's a great venue to do that within business. Number 4 is career. I'm an entrepreneur. I have been since I was 18, 19. And so that's obviously my preference. But if my kids want to pursue something that's more in the corporate world or whatever, no problem. But I want them to have a focus on what is your career and have that balance. So that's one of the reasons I've taken them with me to work in business meetings and help them set up their own company so they can find that balance from a young age. And then lastly is finances. That's an area that I struggled early into my marriage because I didn't have a high financial IQ. And so I spent years, my wife and I, really understanding money, not just how to make it, but obviously how to spend it. And so I've also spent a lot of time with my kids teaching them how to, I hate to say balance a checkbook. I know that's a dated term, but just how to manage their money. If you want something, you save and you put the cash away and you don't live on credit, all those things. But those are the 5 things that we have been very intentional to teach our kids in terms of legacy. Now, all that said, yes, I'm very focused on building this nest egg and building up my businesses, et cetera, to give to my kids one day. But that would be number 6 on my list. The top 5, I feel like if they can achieve these things, my nest egg really won't matter. If they're successful in these other categories, they'll be fine.
Awesome. So Ted, you said something came to my mind, and I want us to hit on it real quick. So we all are married, but what about the guy that's not, that has children? How do we teach them? What advice do we give them about leaving a legacy for their children when they're not married? I believe it could be the same things that we're doing, but we have that our spouse and our partners to help us. But some of them may have a baby mama, and they got baby mama drama, and they got all this stuff, but they still need to learn how to leave a legacy. And they may not be able to leave a legacy of marriage, but what advice would we give to them about leaving a legacy with that for their children?
You always have great questions, Nate. That's a great question. So total improv here, but I think the biggest thing I would emphasize to someone that is single and raising kids, especially if we're talking about a man, I would say you've got a tough road. And the reason is because by nature, we are not the best nurturers. And it's also, I think most men kind of feel like it's maybe a little bit emasculating to hold their kids for too long or kiss on them or whatever. And that's a real mistake. If you're the alpha male in the room and feel like you're too cool for that, you're too manly, you're really going to mess them up. So that's the first thing I would emphasize to a man that has that responsibility is you're going to play dual roles. If there's not a mom or at least a woman that's present, active, that's a lot of empathy that you need to teach them. That's a lot of nurturing that they need to feel from you. So that balance is going to be a challenge. So I would certainly encourage them to, number one, get in a good church. Because you're going to be surrounded by great women that have done this many times over. And I'm making all kinds of assumptions, right? I don't know if they have family around, et cetera. But I would say first and foremost, get active in a church. And I've said this so many times over the years when I've witnessed to people about why should I go to church? I'm a good person. Look, even if you don't believe in God, you could be an atheist or an agnostic, and still you're going to benefit tremendously from going to church. Because people pay big money to go to these seminars. I used to go to these self-help seminars where you're getting this great message, right? And so you're getting a free message. You don't have to pay a dime. You're getting to interact with other people. So you're networking. Who doesn't appreciate a good hug, even in the age of COVID? Put your mask on and hug it out. There's so many benefits that, honestly, I would say if you get involved in a great church, virtually everything that you're probably lacking as a man, or just in terms of maybe developing a group that can help shepherd your child or children, you're going to find that in the church.
I love it. And I can attest because I grew up in a single family household. My mom, single parent household. My mom raised 5 of us, and I never had anyone. I had my godfather. You guys know my story. For every season of my life, I had a father figure, but it's different than having it in the home. And I didn't have anybody in the home to teach me about legacy. My mom struggled day by day, pinching pennies. I forgot how they said, but just to make sure we had food. So that was a legacy that I saw. I saw a single parent, single mom, no father in the home legacy. So my goal was to change that when I got married. And when I had children, I said before I got married, when I have children, I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna create a new legacy of Holloway men. And for guys out there that are single dads, even for guys out there who didn't have a father, that's what I want to say to you. That's what we want to tell you. That's why we're doing this, because you can still leave a legacy for your children. You can change the narrative in your life. I changed it. I said it stops with me and starts with me. I'm creating a new legacy with my son. I'm creating a new legacy for the Holloway name. The Holloway name has shifted with me, and my son is going to have a legacy that's different. That's going to be a legacy of family, a legacy of faith, a legacy of finances, a legacy of integrity, a legacy of a father being in the home, of being a man. And we just have to, you guys can do that. You just have to make the decision to shift and change and do that. So with that being said, guys, what are some ways? Now we talked about leaving legacy. We talked about those things. We talked about ways that we want to leave legacy. But what are some things that you guys are doing to create a legacy for your kids? I know, Ted, you say you helping your kids, teaching them how to start a business. I love that. I'm gonna have to get with you because that's my goal for Caleb, to build with Caleb. But what are some of the things, Tony, Jimmy, what are some of the things that you guys are doing to create that legacy for your kids?
I'll step in here. I mean, one of the main things I think I'm doing is really showing my daughter, for instance, and my wife as well, that I don't have all the answers, right? Mm-hmm. So they constantly see me studying, right? They constantly see me, learning from other people, from like what Ted said, being involved in a church, from getting involved in being around a community that's smarter than I am, has more experience than I am. From doing these podcasts, right? These are, we're sharing our knowledge, but we're also receiving knowledge from each and every one of this crew member, right? So if we act like know-it-alls, then we're going to pass along that know-it-all mentality to our children, whoever's watching, right? Whoever's watching. Because when we talk about legacy, yeah, we're focused on family, right, Nate? And like you were asking about how about the single dads out there, and we're lucky enough and blessed to have spouses. However, legacy is about individuality. I think it's about individual performance. It's about who you were when you were around, like Jimmy says, who you were when you're currently living right now, who you are. But statistically, people focus on that when somebody passes, right? And when somebody passes, I mean, I want to be known as the guy that was like, man, you know what? I remember Tony said such and such saying all the time. I remember Tony was the type of guy that went above and beyond for the next person. I remember Tony was always at his daughter's dance recitals and school events. I remember Tony used to always date his wife, regardless of how many years they were together. I remember Tony was active in his church. So, we leave these pieces of legacy throughout our life, right? We sprinkle them. And then going back to knowledge, I think the majority of people I'm surrounded are stuck in their ways, right? They never want to grow. They never want to learn. They always want to be the smartest person in the room. And one of the biggest sayings I preach in my house to my daughter all the time is, if you're the smartest in the room, you're in the wrong room. We got to surround ourselves in order to build ourselves and leave that going legacy. Because if I were to die right now, I'll leave a nice, knowledgeable legacy. But if I'm able to live an extra 30, 50, 60, 70 years, all the knowledge that I could gain throughout that time by being open-minded and receptive of people's experiences, because that's the biggest teacher. We can go to the textbook, we can go, everywhere we want. But if I could pick, Ted's brain on, being a grandfather, I have zero clue. I don't even know what it looks like, what it tastes like, nothing. I already know right off the bat that the hardest part is trying to figure out which name you want to go to.
All right.
I mean, that's wisdom all in itself, So if I ever have somebody that's about to become a grandfather and they're nervous about that situation, I can immediately tell them, hey, man, focus on what you're going to be called, and it'll bring down that stress level. Honestly speaking, it'll bring down that stress level, that somebody like Ted gave me that wisdom and I could pass along to the next person, even though I'm never a grandfather, right? Mm-hmm. I could pass along that knowledge. And I think that the more we can prove to those around us that trust in us and that believe in us and that value our leadership, the more we can teach them that we also go to outside sources in order to find that knowledge and experience. I mean, that's a legacy that you'll leave forever, that they know that they're never going to be alone. There's people everywhere. There's community, there's church, there's the Bible. I mean, you can just go to it, find the knowledge and pass it along to the next person. And they never have to feel like they don't have the answer. One of my best things to say in a meeting, before I used to go crazy preparing for a meeting. I'm speaking to, millionaires who have been in the industry way longer than I have, or I'm trying to sell a real estate deal that's outside of my league. And I used to prepare for all these questions and I used to get paranoid about, man, I'm not going to know the answer. Now I look forward to that question, something that I don't know. And I say, man, you know what? That's a very good question. Let me do the research and I'll get back to you on that. And I think that people respect that so much more than if you just try to finagle your way around a statistical norm answer, and then passing that along to our kids where they don't have to fear that. It's okay to say you don't have it. You don't know that answer. That's legendary, man. And it's funny because one thing that comes to mind is, Field of Dreams, heroes get remembered, but legends never die. You can be an everyday hero, but what kind of legendary, legacies are we leaving? Is it all financial power, or is it a how-to book on, how we survived our, generation and our lives, and we can pass that along to the next person and they can do it, generationally for our grandkids and so on.
That's good. Good. Love it. Jimmy.
Hey, so the word that keeps coming to my mind is intentional. And just being intentional on the legacy that I want to leave. The cool part is I can be relying on God, but also be the creator of the legacy I want to leave. And we were, I know we talked when Ted was speaking about the single dad and what you should do. And what I'll tell you is, whether you believe it or not, you are leaving a legacy. Even if it's a bad one, you're leaving a legacy. So I would just say start today and make a decision, because, you know, we have that control over our lives. We're not robots. To say today I choose to change the legacy that was being left into what I want it to be, or how God has created it to be. So I think that's how that intentionality with my family is how I kind of live every day. Perfect example happened this evening before this call. It's kind of funny. My son and I are rebuilding a 1987 Chevy Square Body. He's 15 years old. So a great bonding experience. I'll preface this by saying this. I am not a mechanic. I am good at YouTube videos, and I can find it, Google it, watch it. And so he's like looking up to me at 15 years old, like, Dad, what do we do? And I'm like, Gabriel, I have no clue. We're going and we're buying a starter and we're going to put it on, you know, and with bloody knuckles and transmission fluid falling and oil dripping on his head. He was like, I know now, I don't think I want to be a mechanic, you know? So, but it's just those types of bonding, intentionality, working together on something, just spending time, is building him into who I want him to, who I would like to see him become as he ages. You know, and then he ordered some headlight parts for the truck this week. He's been waiting. It's like Christmas. He's waiting and waiting and waiting. They showed up today. He got home from school and basketball practice. He opened them up. It was the wrong part. He ordered the wrong part. And I could just see him. He looked at me. He looked at his mom. And in his mind, he was racing like, how would they handle it? What would they do? And I saw the defeat on him because he really wanted to get his headlights working today and the parts aren't right. So we sat down before dinner and we said, okay, what are you going to do? Great learning experience. He says, I'm going to have to return them. I said, right. He says, Dad, can you call to get this set up? I said, no, you're going to call and you're going to return the parts. So he made the phone call. The customer service agent spoke, super polite. And, you know, he's very awkward because he's like, Dad, I don't know who they are. I've never spoken to them, never seen them. We're not face to face. This is awkward because today's era, all they do is text. You know, they're just texting, Snapchat, you know, sending pictures, little. So they don't have an interaction with like real people, like handling problems like this. So I knew it was a great legacy leaving moment. Even prior to this call. So he speaks to her. She says, Gabriel, thanks for reaching out. We will be more than happy to return these incorrect parts. She says, but if you flip your order over on the back side, it tells you everything on how to return the parts. And my son got so upset because my wife knew that the return was there. She knew exactly what to do, how to do it, but it was the fact of, we want you to take this time, make the phone call, tell them that you need the right parts without giving him the easy way out of saying, here, put this back in the box. I need to ship these back. So great. To me, I felt that was a great legacy leaving moment because there was an error. And we said, sometimes you got to go through a process to fix the error. And then sometimes it's as simple as if you just flip the page over, the answer's right there. So, but we didn't want to give him the answer or show him the answer on how to return it. We wanted him to kind of feel the process. So to me, that intentionality of what are we doing? How are we wanting our kids to be raised? How do we want them to grow in their own legacy, to be problem solvers, to not be completely reliant on, you know, the easy way out, but sometimes work for what they are going to get. So again, that was just my little real world experience right before this call. And it was kind of cool.
Oh yeah, it's cool, man. And I love how you let him make the call and you didn't give him the answers. And I think that's how they have to learn stuff. And I try to do it with Caleb. I don't have a lot of big legacy building moments with Caleb. I have small teachable moments with him. And this one time, right before Christmas, he asked for a Cosmo robot. And I said, okay, son, let's look it up, see how much it is. Looked it up. It was $799. I said, he said, can we order it? I said, no. I said, you can earn it. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, let's see. Let's create a list and let's see what you can do around the house and different things. And we'll put a price on it, and that, you can make the money to earn it, to earn the $800. No, $699 or $700 to earn the $700 to get it. He said, but Daddy, that would take forever. I said, yes, but guess what? You will learn how to make money and get it, and you'll appreciate it. But I want it now. I said, nope, can't have it now, son. I said, it's $700. He said, but Daddy, how much money do you have? I said, it's how much money? You're right. How much money do I have? He said, well, I got $100 in my wallet. I said, okay, that's your $100. So you need $599 more dollars. And I said, well, we got, he said, but it's going to take a while, son. I said, but you will learn how to do it. He said, okay, Daddy. He said, let's figure out how to do it. But then he said, you know what, Daddy? I don't need it right now. So he saw, what he would have to do to get it. But also in that moment, I'm teaching him on other things. I said, after this Christmas, anything that you get before Christmas, you're going to have to start earning it, whether it's your grades or whether you do things around the house to make money to earn it. Because I want to teach him like Ted's doing with his kids. That's something I've always wanted to do with Caleb, is teach him how to start a business. Because I said, instead of giving him an allowance, I want him to do things and he give me an invoice at the end of the week, and then I pay him, from his invoice. And that's what I'm working on with him. So instead of an allowance, what do I call it, Ted? I should know it. But
instead of an allowance,
instead of allowance, what's the business word for it? I'm lost for words right now. When they give you the invoice, you pay. Well, I'm paying this bill. I'm paying the bill.
Man, I can't think of it. I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry.
I know. I drew a blank too, but that's
invoice?
What I want.
Is it an invoice?
Well, I'm paying the invoice. Yeah, he's getting his payment. But that's what I want to do with him, because that's my legacy I want to leave for Caleb. One of the legacies I want to leave for Caleb. I want him to be self-sufficient. I want him to be entrepreneurial, to be able to go out there, and if he doesn't get a job, if he loses his job, he gets one, he can go out there and say, I can start me a business, bam, and make the money and take care of my family, or take care of himself. So that's my life. So mine right now are those little teachable moments. I want to get to where you are, Jimmy, where we're building cars together and stuff like that. But we're not there yet, because he get bored with it.
It's stressful. It's stressful.
I bet. But I mean, this legacy is big, guys. For those of you watching, leaving a legacy is important, and it's important for many reasons. We've said that as we've talked tonight, that leaving a legacy is important because you build your children up, you teach them how to make it on their own. Whether it's financial legacy, you leave them with a cushion to be able to live their life, but we also have to teach them the wisdom to be able to not splurge that money, not spend that money, not waste that money, but to be able to handle it. My son said, funny story, Caleb said to me one day, he wanted to get something. I said, Caleb, well, you got $100 in your wallet. I don't want to waste my money. It's like, but you want to waste mine. There's a waste when it comes to your money, but it's not when it comes to mine. I said, no, you're going to buy it. And so just teaching them not to think like that. I understand he wants to keep his money, but I want to teach him how to be disciplined with his money and spend his money on the right things. And, being able to, I'll teach you how to negotiate with me. Okay. You wanted me to buy it. Let's negotiate, sales, teach them like Ted said, people skills, being able to talk to people in business and things like that. But that's my my lasting take. You guys got anything else you want to say about the topic?
Yeah, I wanted to, Nate, or I'm sorry, Tony, you go right ahead.
No, I was just gonna piggyback on something Jimmy said earlier about leaving love as a legacy. Forget the finances. We teach them how to love and how to love your neighbor, how to love on others, and they're gonna receive love back. Because what we put out there, we get back. So I think that what Jimmy said there is something that, whether you're a single man or you're married, whatever the case may be, you're young. If you really want to focus on a real legendary legacy, start with love.
That's great. You're absolutely right. Nate, do we have a hard stop at 9 or 60 minutes or what?
We're wrapping it up. So go ahead, Ted. You good? No, Ted, we always got time for you, man.
Well, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. I'm just kidding. All right. So first I wanted to say, Nate, I think your mom did a phenomenal job with you because you are an incredible human being.
Thank you.
Something I've always tried to do, I shouldn't say always, the last few years I really started focusing on this with my employees, and that is speaking life into them. So what I mean by that, for those of us that grew up in church, we get it, but a lot of these guys didn't. I'm trying to get better as I get older of speaking life into people and resisting that little voice that tells me if you say that, you don't sound as cool or again, it's emasculating, because we have a problem with that as men, of telling another man, hey, I love you, I'm proud of you, I'm praying for you, you're a remarkable human being. So I've tried to really get better about that over the years, guys. And I had you on my mind last week, Nate. So again, very timely. When we first met, no, seriously, we had this conversation about lack of fatherhood and the importance of fathers and all that stuff. And all that's true, right? The impact that it makes. And yet, look at who you are. I think sometimes the lack of really underscores in our lives what we should do better, right? So not having a dad in our lives, I think, in some ways can be good. I have seen this several times. Some of my closest friends that grew up with just a mom they're the best people that I know. They're very well balanced. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be gaps. There's not going to be some lacking in certain areas, but I just wanted to tell you that you've really impressed me over the years with your intentionality with your son. And again, just from the moment we met, just your heart for wanting to really not just be a better father, but spread that message. We're lacking that. So I appreciate you for doing that and for continuing this. The second thing is about transparency. I think one of the best things we can do, and I think, Jimmy, you and Tony touched on this. So my dad was former military, a drill sergeant at one point, and he was the alpha male, and I hated it. And we have been estranged for several years. I've seen him a few times. We don't have a relationship anymore, and it's okay. It is what it is. But one thing that taught me was being more transparent with my kids, or as much as I can be totally transparent. My kids know about my story before I got saved, before I got married. I was a punk. I got in all kinds of trouble. I've shared some of that with you guys before. But God turned my life around. I met the right woman in this order. Then I met the right woman. Then I realized what my career was, what my ambitions were. Everything started to fall into place. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. But when I say transparency, what I mean is when I mess up with my kids, I own it. I look them in the face and say, son, I should not have done that. And this is what I wanted to share with you guys. I wrote this down, specific examples. I love it when people give specific, like tactical examples of what they did to achieve X, right? It's like the resume when someone says, grew the business 6,000%. Well, how'd you do it? What specifically did you do? I mean, anyone could write that on a piece of paper. What specifically did you do? So I want to give you guys a specific example that happened yesterday where I feel like more fathers should do this. And it's hard. It's hard. So I was leaving my house the other day, and we have this brick area around our well. And my son had backed my truck up, my F-150, my pride and joy. My son had backed it up into this area so that we could load something at the back. And so I came afterwards and helped him load it, and then it was time to leave. And just not thinking, I go to leave, and I cut it a little too sharp, and I hit these bricks. and scratched the mess out of the side of my truck. So, I'm already in a bad mood. I'm already upset about my beautiful truck that I just had detailed. And now it's got these scratches. And my son was like, Dad, he's like, you just need to go back out and straight. I was like, yeah, I got it. I'm with you, son. Now that I've got these huge gouges, I've put that together as well. So I back up and I go straight. And he goes to say something again. I was like, TJ, please just shut your mouth. And he goes, I'm just trying to help. And it just hit me wrong. And I put the truck in park and I jumped out of the truck and I was like, why are you continuing to smart off to me after I just said to please shut your mouth? I'm already upset. And now you're being a smart aleck. And he's like, Dad, I was just trying to help. So it really hit him because I don't get upset very often. I'm pretty laid back, and it hit him, and I could see he was starting to get emotional. And so I stopped. I said, listen, what I should have said just now when you said, hey, Dad, back it out, go straight, even though it was extremely logical, what I should have said was, thank you, son. So I'm sharing that for a reason, guys. And I told him, look, my dad, if I had said that to my dad when I was 20, even at 20, my dad would have put his hands on me in some way. It would have been a smack across the face. He'd have thumped me in the head, or he would have grabbed me by the shirt. And I said, I don't ever want to do that. I've never done that to you. And I hope to God I never would. I try my best to balance the sternness that we do need to be at times as a dad, right? Life is hard. And that's what I told him. And so I turned that into a lesson. I was like, son, life is hard. One day, if your boss, which is me right now, he's been working for me for 4 years. But anyway, it's like one day if you have another boss besides me and you smart off or you say something after he tells you to shut your mouth, he could fire you on the spot. Right. So I want to teach you that there is a balance. But again, guys, I could have just taken the high road and said, thank you, son. And it would have all been avoided. So that's a specific example of where I want to own my mistakes. My dad never admitted he was wrong. He never said, son, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. So to our point about intentionality, I think that's been a theme that we've all addressed, and rightfully so. We should also be intentional when we mess up to own that. To our kids, be transparent and say, hey, I was wrong. I shouldn't have raised my voice. I shouldn't have said that. Whatever it is, I'm sorry. So it's about just being better. So that's all I got for you.
but to be honest, that still leaves a legacy. There's a legacy of transparency. It leaves a legacy of character. It leaves a legacy of integrity to our kids. Your son, that's a teachable moment for him because he said, okay, if my dad can apologize, I can apologize. Okay, so this is how dad do it. So now I know that when I have children, then my children, if that happens, and we may not catch it up right away, but if it happens, then, well, I remember dad did this and he apologized. So let me talk to my son or my daughter and apologize. And that's the key, guys. We just got to take those things, take those lessons. And Jimmy, you said something, I wrote it down. You said, choose to create the legacy you want to leave. And I may have paraphrased a little bit, but we got to choose that. And all that comes with being intentional. Like you guys said, if I can take 2 words away from tonight, I'm going to take intentional and choice, because we make the choice to be intentional about the legacy that we leave to our children. I'm going to find some way to put that on a t-shirt to get it rolling. So before we go, guys, anybody got anything else they want to say?
Let's continue this, man. This is impactful and needed.
Yeah. Well, it's the new year. It's 2022. We got some big topics we're gonna talk about this year, guys. I've been trying to think of a name for it. I just call us the crew. I'm
okay with that.
So, that's what it's gonna be. The tightest podcast gonna be talking legacy with the crew. So, but all you guys that are watching, we really appreciate you watching us and joining us tonight. I just want to tell you, just take what we said, take the advice, take some of it. And if you have some advice that you've gotten, pair with what we're talking about tonight and work on leaving a legacy for your children. And again, until next time, be victorious.